what if spirituality or the pursuit of enlightenment meant more suffering? Would you do it? Would you still be interested in this? Because a lot of people, I think, get into spirituality because they want to stop suffering. They want to feel better. Well, ponder this. What if getting into this whole thing meant that you're going to suffer more? Because honestly, man, you are. First, it's like you're suffering these kinds of more mundane kind of common things, you know? The kind of suffering everybody experiences of, like, you know, the suffering around like money and relationships and health and, you know, self-esteem and, you know, mental illness and whatever. And so you think perhaps maybe spirituality, pursuing enlightenment, will fix this suffering, but it actually just opens the door for a more existential suffering. Because really, and you know, it will actually solve your suffering in the mundane kind of suffering that everybody usually experiences. It will kind of solve a lot of that, but it opens the door for another deeper kind. Because basically, you know, why does it solve the kind of mundane suffering? Because the reason why you're suffering is because you're living in an illusion. You're living in an imagined reality. And what is awakening other than waking up from everything you imagined to be true? Everything you imagine in your mind. And so, of course, you wake up from like these kinds of common sufferings that you experience. You realize that you're suffering because you're misperceiving how things actually are. And when you start to see that, it's like, oh, okay, I don't need to suffer anymore. But, so why am I saying like you open the door for more existential, deeper suffering? It's because you are starting to see just how you are imagining your sense of reality and your sense of self. And the thing is, yeah, that can be very liberating to all these parts that you don't like. You're like, oh, I see now. Then it's not even true, you know? All these things I thought about myself and the world, it's not even true. Oh, thank God. Frees up a lot of suffering. But then it also, you know, you can't just apply that to the shit that you don't like about yourself or the world. You also have to, if you're true about this, if you're sincere about this, you have to apply this to everything. And so all the parts, all the views you have of yourself and the world, which you think are like a very solid foundation, very stable, and even perhaps even good for you and good for the world, and you think is like, oh yeah, I'm proud of these qualities that I have and I'm whatever. You also have to apply this truth seeking to all aspects of your life. And so that's when more suffering comes in, because it's like, oh shit, dude, like all these things that I loved and valued and that I thought were secure and stable and real are not. They are imagination. And that's why there's more suffering that comes along. Because you are really breaking open the illusion that you don't think is an illusion but you think is real, that is basically your reality. Like, because, like, think about this. We don't even think about it. Look in your experience now. This is what is true. You don't know what it is, but this is what is true. It's here. You know it is. All else is imagination. Of course it is. That's obvious. But can you actually see what kind of worldview you are in? Can you actually see how you're perceiving what you are making this experience to be? Because it is imagination to think that there are other people having their own conscious experience. That's an imagination. It's an imagination to think that you have this amount of money in the bank, or that you have parents, or whatever. I'm stating the facts. You're imagining it. Of course you are. Just look at your experience. And this is why suffering occurs, because of course you don't want to realize that your parents right now are imaginary. You don't want to realize that other conscious experiences are imaginary, and that this experience is all that's happening. You don't want that. Why don't you want that? What if that is truth? See, do you go along the spiritual path because you want the truth? No. Usually anybody that starts up on the spiritual path is because they want to end the suffering, not suffer more. Usually people who go on the spiritual path is a way to actually reinforce the survival of illusion of the self and the world in which you're imagining. It's a way to hold on to it rather than let it go. And so what is grief other than the grief of illusion, grieving something that you thought to be real and true, but now realizing that that is not the case. That's what grief is. That's what suffering is. You're losing your entire reality. Everything you imagined to be true. But again, don't make this kind of like, don't make this into the philosophy of solipsism. Because that needs to be let go of as well. I would say solipsism is a great stepping stone. It's probably one of the closest pointers to truth that I can think of. But to say like, I'm like, this experience is the only experience, and there are no other people having experiences, to say that, is that like genuine truth? And perhaps it is, but you got to be honest with yourself. Is that just what is, or are you conjuring up that construct and projecting it onto this experience? Because then it's no different. Either saying like, I'm the only thing that exists, or saying I'm one of many people. Same thing. So